Welcome to This Explainer. If you've ever walked away from a conversation with a friend or a colleague feeling, I don't know, just strangely drained, like you're suddenly doubting yourself or carrying this heavy, unspoken tension, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're looking at a pretty fascinating breakdown of covert hostility. Okay, let's dive into this because we are going to validate that gut feeling you've been having about certain relationships, and we're going to decode exactly what jealous people do when they realize they simply can't compete with you.
So, have you felt the switch? Really think about it for a second. I bet you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's that sudden, almost imperceptible colder tone you get hit with. It usually happens the exact moment you stop needing someone's approval and actually start stepping into your own personal success. They still smile, right? They still praise you, they pretend everything is totally normal, but something underneath the surface keeps trying to shrink you. Let's unpack why that actually happens.
You see, the difference is entirely physical. Think about real support. When you get good news, someone who truly supports you, they just light up. It literally feels warm in your chest. But jealous support, that lands like a receipt. It's this cold, calculated transaction that shoots right down your spine. And why is that? Because your progress doesn't inspire them, it exposes them. Your success is essentially a glaring reminder to insecure people of the risks they actively avoided and the discipline they skipped. So their fake congratulations ends up feeling remarkably hollow, because to them, your win is their loss.
Section 1. Spotting the hidden shift. Let's take a closer look at this hidden jealousy.
Because the truth is, jealousy rarely just announces itself honestly. Instead, it sneaks in dressed up as advice or concern or maybe a little sarcasm. It literally folds poison into support. Now, what's really interesting about this is how heavily it relies on deniability. Deniability is the absolute core weapon of disguised jealousy. These people know they can't beat you fairly, so they start competing emotionally and psychologically. They pull these moves that are just subtle enough so that if you call them out, they can say, "Whoa, you're being way too sensitive," or "I was obviously just joking." It's a shield. And it keeps you constantly explaining yourself, constantly off balance, instead of confidently defending your own boundaries. Moving into Section 2, the slow poison tactics. We're going to look at what we call the tiny cuts. You really have to watch for this frantic, subtle chaos. It's taking hours and hours to reply to your text, but then expecting instant warmth when they finally do. It's sitting in a meeting and hearing them repeat your exact idea just a little bit louder and practically claiming it as their own. It's interrupting your story at the precise peak when everyone is leaning in to listen. Or, and this is a classic, going totally, completely silent when you have a massive win. None of these moves look huge on their own, right? But string them together and they form this frantic, anxiety-driven pattern of hidden hostility. It's chaos.
And then, of course, there's the disappearing act. Notice how when you grow, get healthier, or become more disciplined, their support suddenly goes strangely quiet. But let you fail, get dumped, lose your confidence, boom, they reappear incredibly fast. Make no mistake, that is not compassion. That is an appetite for a version of you that they can manage. See, your pain lowers your price. It raises their importance. It makes them feel safe again.
Now for Section 3, escalation and reputation control. So what exactly happens when direct competition totally fails? Well, here is the chronological escalation. First, they minimize your wins cleanly and quietly. Second, they begin copying the exact routines they used to mock you for, which is just a crazy contradiction when you think about it. They want your results, so they steal pieces of your formula, all while still talking down to you. Third, they actively try to sabotage you right before a major milestone. And finally, when you inevitably pull away, they resort to reputation control and whispering behind your back.
Let's actually focus on that sabotage step for a second, because this one is super dangerous. They will intentionally plant hesitation and subtle shame right before a big interview, a product launch, or right when you're setting a firm boundary. They suddenly sound brutally honest at the exact moment your confidence matters the most. You have to recognize this is not honesty. It's strategic erosion dressed up like tough love. It's purely designed to keep you doubting yourself. And when their emotional control over you completely fails, that's when the reputation control begins. They start slapping labels on you to mutual friends. But let's decode these labels together, shall we? When they call you different, it really just means you are harder to use. When they complain that you're too much, it just means your standards got expensive and they lost their discount to your energy. And when they call you arrogant, it simply means you finally stopped shrinking to make them feel relaxed. These labels are nothing but pressure tactics.
All right, Section 4, your arsenal of defense.
Okay, let's all just take a deep breath, drop your shoulders, find your calm. We've seen their playbook, now it's time to build yours. Because when you're dealing with chaotic insecurity, your defense is actually beautifully simple. When they lay a trap with a sharp joke, your move is just to pause and hold eye contact. When they withhold praise to try and make you feel small, you respond with delayed warmth. Do not rush to fix the mode. And when they gossip, you just keep moving. And this brilliantly illustrates how maintaining a neutral face and absolute silence forces them to sit alone with their own toxic energy. Let's give you some exact phrases you can use in the wild. The first is just one simple word. Interesting. When they say something subtly undermining, just say this. And let it hang in the air. Never, ever rush to soften the tension. Delaying totally breaks the jealous person's rhythm. It exposes who actually needs control more than connection. Here's your second phrase. When a sharp joke lands like a slap in the face, look right at them and say, "Explain that." Say it like you already know exactly what they're doing. Look, jealous people thrive on implication. It lets them wound you safely. This phrase rips them right out of that safety and forces direct ownership of their hostility. And trust me, weak people utterly despise ownership. Now, when their fake concern starts sounding suspiciously like control, you deliver this line with absolute, flat neutrality. I did not ask for approval. This immediately shuts the door. It stops them from pretending they're just looking out for you and establishes a massive, uncrossable boundary. And when the emotional urgency, the guilt, or the pressure appears, just say, "That does not work on me." These short lines absolutely protect you. Why? Because jealous people feed on your emotional over-explaining. The longer you talk, the more they study your insecurities, your guilt, and your pressure points. You gotta cut off their data supply with short lines. So the crucial point is this fundamental shift. You have to move from explaining to observing. Explaining yourself just hands them all your emotional data. Observing them, on the other hand, leaves them nowhere to hide. Cold, insecure people hate being observed way more than they hate being confronted. When you just quietly watch them, their whole jealous performance becomes painfully transparent. And that brings us to perhaps the most important reframe of this entire explainer. You have to remember this. Their behavior reveals their limitations, not your flaws. Seriously, they aren't reacting to your worthlessness, they are reacting to your immense value. Your discipline irritates them simply because it exposes their excuses. Your peace exposes their chaos. At the end of the day, it is not about you. So stop trying to win warmth from people who are already threatened by your very existence. Stop giving them detailed access to your fears and your private process. Instead, adopt this mantra: move quieter, speak cleaner, and let your results say what insecure people can never admit. I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge today. Which short line are you going to test out this week? Will it be interesting? Explain that. Or maybe that does not work on me. Take this new arsenal out into the real world. Hold your calm and just watch their control completely disappear.